Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Philly Sports Eagles pregame show, brought to you by brought to you by SeatGeek. We are Philly Sports. This is brought to you by SeatGeek. Use code Philly Sports Report to save $20 off your first purchase on SeatGeek. Tonight, I should say, the Eagles look to stay undefeated as they head to Tampa to face the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are also 2-0. My name is Benjamin Goldstein. I am joined by Sam Hine. Sam, how are we doing tonight?
Feeling good. Excited to finally have an Eagles game after 11 days off. Not very often that once you start the season, you get basically a bye week after week 2, but here we are, and after 11 long days off, we're back with Eagles football.
Yeah, the Eagles really needed this long break. They're very banged up. A lot of guys coming back tonight, thank goodness. And hopefully one guy that wasn't out, but he could try and turn the season around a little bit, is the quarterback. We'll talk about the quarterback matchups right now, starting with the Eagles quarterback Jalen Hurts. Last week against Minnesota, he was 18 for 23, throwing for 193 yards. He threw one touchdown. He had one interception. He was sacked 4 times with a QB rating of 44.5. Looking back at last week against Minnesota, the Eagles got their first big win, their first dominating such win on offense with 34 points. What did you see from the Eagles offense last week?
What we really saw was the Eagles kind of go back to what they did in the 2021 season with running the football. No one really expected Jalen to kind of turn back into the 2021 quarterback that we've seen so far from him, and the offensive coaching staff really noticed that and said, you know what, let's just go back to our roots. Let's go back to what we know is going to work, and they just pounded the rock. And once they took the ball out of Jalen's hands, the offense really started working. That's not a good thing. Obviously, it's good that we won the game, but to be able to get to the aspirations that this team has and the heights that this team wants to get to, they're going to need Jalen to be able to throw the ball consistently, be able to move the ball on offense. And I'm hoping that hopefully we can get back to that tonight.
For today against the very solid Buccaneers defense, what should we expect from Jalen Hurts?
So I think that we should expect some of this basically. It's tough because some of the same things that some of the defensive coaches have been doing the first 2 weeks, I expect Todd Bowles to do those as well. One of the things that we've seen from the coaches that a lot of the defenses didn't really do last year, but are starting to do this year, is disguise their defenses a lot more against Jalen. Jalen is great at the RPO, being able to read a man, deciding whether it's going to be a run, whether it's going to be a pass, or whether he's going to keep it himself. And it seems like so far this season, teams have been able to figure out that if they show one look before the snap, Jalen is looking at that, and then he's not keeping his head up and reading what's coming after the snap, and they're changing around what's going on after the snap. So if it looks like man before the snap, it's going to be zone. If it looks like zone before the snap, it's going to be man. So Todd Bowles has done a good job in his career of making Jalen confused, and I expect him to kind of do some of the same things that he did in the one playoff game that we lost against him, and really take what other defensive coordinators have kind of put a blueprint out of how to stop the Eagles offense. But the Buccaneers also have really good talent on defense. They've obviously great linebackers. They have Vita Vea, so they still have some players left over from that Super Bowl championship team that we should not look past. So I think it might be another rough day for the offense, and we should expect the Eagles offense to get back on track today, but it wouldn't surprise me if Jalen still struggles to throw the ball today.
Speaking of that Buccaneers defense, with those still lingering from the Super Bowl championship team a few seasons ago, what should we look out for in this Buccaneers defense? What fears you the most?
So I think I just kind of touched on it a little bit, but my biggest fear for this defense is the coaching staff of Todd Bowles and his other coaches, because they've shown that in the past they know how to stop Jalen. Obviously, everyone remembers Jalen's first playoff game where the Eagles were down 31-0. Hurts could not get anything going in the passing game, and it led to a lot of discussion in the offseason about whether or not he was going to be the quarterback moving forward. And there's a very famous video that came out from that game where the players are coming off to the sidelines and yelling, he can't read, which Obviously talks about him not being able to diagnose what he's seeing on the other side of the ball, whether that's pre-snap or after the snap. So I think that Bowles has done a good job of being able to disguise stuff, and I think he's going to try to do it again. I mean, like I said before, Hurts has struggled so far this season reading defenses, whether it's the RPO, whether it's him just thinking that he has a player that he wants before the snap, and then the defense changes and he just sticks on that guy. We've seen him do that to Devontae a couple times. That interception that he had last week against Minnesota was a clear indication of that he just saw what he saw before, didn't recognize the change, and just threw it right in the double coverage that ended up in an interception. So I think that Todd Bowles is definitely my biggest fear on the defense, along with, obviously some good players up the middle that they have. But I think the coaching staff is going to be the biggest fear. And until I see that the Eagles offensive coaching staff and Jalen can kind of diagnose and figure out what these other coaching staffs are doing to their offense, I'm just not going to believe that they can do it until I need to see it first, because we don't have Shane Steichen anymore. Last year Steichen was really able to keep Jalen moving, keep Jalen in rhythm, and Brian Johnson did a good job last game of pivoting, but we haven't seen that he's been able to adjust to different defensive looks so far this season. So I kind of am in wait and see mode with him.
Moving on to the quarterback of the opposition, Baker Mayfield, and his 2-0 Buccaneers. Still can't believe Baker Mayfield is 2-0. His stats last week against the Chicago Bears, who are now 0-3. He was 26 for 34 with 317 passing yards. He threw for a touchdown. He was sacked no times, and his QB rating was 68.1. So what should we expect from the Buccaneers offense today?
Well, they don't really like to run the ball, and they're not really going to run the ball against this Eagles defense. So far this season, the Eagles defense has not been good against the pass. So I think that one of the things that we can expect for the Bucs is to use their two really good wide receivers and try to take advantage of that. The Eagles are giving up an average of 340 yards per game in the air so far this season, which is very bad. And, obviously a lot of people last year were upset with how Jonathan Gannon ran his defense, and Sean Desai has kind of escaped blame so far this season because the Eagles offense has not looked like how it should, but the Eagles passing defense is definitely a problem. Obviously last week you can explain it away as, oh, we're missing, James Bradbury, and we're missing Reed Blankenship, which are definitely true, and those players obviously make a huge difference. But now with them back, obviously we lost Avonte Maddox for the season, but with Bradbury and Blankenship back, we should expect the Eagles passing defense to be a little bit better. But I think I think what we should expect from the Bucs offense today is to really try to move the ball through the air. Mike Evans had a huge game last week. Obviously Chris Godwin as well, that they can move from inside and outside. They're going to try to get different matchups on him with Avonte being out. And their offense to the air definitely scares me today, because so far under Desai, the Eagles defense has not shown that they've been able to slow down the passing attack, and that's including Mac Jones, who obviously isn't a great passing quarterback. He went up for over 300 on them, so we'll see what Baker does with some better weapons than the Patriots have.
Speaking of James Bradbury, the Eagles are going to start him at nickel quarterback tonight, filling him in for Avonte Maddox, who's out for the season with a torn pec. Bradbury worked in the slot some during training camp. What should we expect from him moving over to nickel today?
So I think that while he might start in the slot, I don't know if he'll be staying in the slot all game. The read that I've got from reading a couple of the Eagles insiders is that the Eagles really want him matched up against Chris Godwin. So I think personally that they might be able to move him inside and out, kind of follow around where Godwin goes, and then have obviously Darius Slay follow around Mike Evans. You saw Slay follow around Justin Jefferson last week, and while Jefferson did have a good statistical game, you didn't really feel his impact as much, and Slay has done a good job of blocking down receivers in the past. So I do think while, obviously Chris Godwin plays a lot in the slot, so while I do think Bradbury's going to start there, I wouldn't be surprised to see if he's moving around. But it also gives Josh Jobe a chance to get his first career start and kind of see what we have in him. Obviously, undrafted guy out of Alabama last year. The Eagles are extremely high on him, and he's one of the young corners that they think can take over once Bradbury and Slay kind of move on. and it'll be really exciting to see what he's got. And if Slay doesn't follow, or if they just stick Bradbury in the slot, he's going to be tested against some really, really, really quality wide receivers. Last week when he had to come into the game after Bradbury's injury, he did a pretty good job. So it's just going to be interesting to see how he does. But on the Bradbury front, it's going to be interesting whether to see if they just keep him in the slot, because obviously Bradbury's a little bit bigger than Avonte Maddox, might be able to match up with a tight end, line up in the slot a little bit better than Mario Goodrich, who they made inactive today. Some people were speculating that he was going to start in the slot today, but I think it's definitely interesting that they're starting Bradbury there. But, until we see it, we don't really know how he's going to play the majority of the snaps.
Going back to the Bucs, are the 2-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers the real deal?
As far as a Super Bowl contender, I do not think they're the real deal, just because they do not have the quarterback play. But as far as making the playoffs and winning that division, I definitely think that they can do that. They've showed so far this season that they have some of the talent left over from that Super Bowl team, and even without Brady, as long as Baker Mayfield can just kind of do his job and not turn the ball over and just be a game manager, that talent can come through. We saw that against the Vikings. We saw that last week against a poor Bears team. But that talent that's still left over from the Super Bowl team is very talented. We saw Devin White, who requested a trade last offseason, said that he regrets that because of how good this team is and how much fun he's having. So I don't think that they are Super Bowl contenders, and I don't think we're going to have to be worrying about them, coming to the link for the NFC Championship game or anything like that. But especially with Derek Carr's injury now and how poor the NFC South is, I definitely think that they could make a run to three-peat in that division.
I agree with that. Could you imagine the Tampa Bay Buccaneers rolling in to the link in late January, the NFC Championship game, after it's being speculated to be nothing this season?
Well, it would bring back a lot of deja vu, horrible memories for a lot of Eagles fans. So hopefully we'd be able to right that wrong.
Yeah, and they're honoring what
Rondé Barber,
yeah, today. Ironic. Anyway, position advantages. What do we have?
So I think the first advantage is going to be for the Eagles. I think the Eagles D-line versus the Bucs O-line. The Bucs do have a decent O-line, but it's just just about every week, the Eagles' defensive line is going to have an advantage over the opposing team's offensive line. And one of the biggest advantages that I think we have today is right tackle. Obviously, Tristan Wirfs is a great right tackle that the Buccaneers drafted a few years ago, but he is now their starting left tackle, which means that they have a first-time starter over at right tackle who's going to be lined up across from Hassan Reddick. Reddick had a thumb injury in the offseason, had surgery, hasn't really done much so far this season, but after a long layoff, kind of getting some more time to rest his hand. He's not the biggest guy, so he's not one of those guys like Jordan Davis or Brandon Graham, where they can use their strength a lot, where he's more of a technical rusher who needs his hands. And I think that he could be lined up for a big game today. And then I think that the Bucs wide receivers have an advantage over our cornerbacks. James Bradbury is going to be starting in the slot for the first time. We'll see how he does. It's going to be tough. It's a different position. It's different assignments, different coverages when you're in zone, different areas. He was an all-pro cornerback last season on the outside, so it'll just be really interesting to see how he's going to do in there. And then Josh Jobe on the outside. He's never started in an NFL game. He's an undrafted rookie. So against players of Mike Evans' caliber, if he is matched up against him, I don't know how he's going to fare against him. So I think that just from that standpoint of on paper, the Bucs, with the injury to Avonte Maddox, the Bucs wide receivers have the advantage over our cornerbacks.
All right, looking at the notable matchups, you listed a few already. Do you have any more?
Yes. So I talked about the one already, Hassan Reddick versus Luke Godecki, who is their right tackle, first-time right tackle, new starter. Tristan Wirfs has been an All-Pro before, Pro Bowler, but he's over to the left, which also could be big for Josh Sweat. I mean, we've heard Andre Dillard talk about how going from right to left is like learning how to swing a baseball bat with your left hand, and how it's extremely hard to play the different sides of the offensive line. So Sweat could definitely take advantage of maybe Wirfs being a little backwards, but I really think that Reddick is going to have his first real impact game. We saw last season he started really slow to the season, still ended up leading the NFL in sacks. So I'm not worried about him yet. Coming off that thumb injury, he'll be all right. But then another notable matchup I had is Jason Kelsey versus Vita Vea. We've seen Kelsey, obviously best center in football, going to be a future Hall of Famer, and he's dominated all the other defensive tackles that have come his way. Think back to the playoffs last year. There was all this talk about how Dexter Lawrence was going to eat Jason Kelsey's lunch and all that kind of stuff. Kelsey dominated him just like he does everybody else, but Vita Vea is a little bit of a different player. He's massive. He's, Jordan Davis was comp to him coming out, and Jordan Davis is obviously one of the biggest players on the Eagles. And the Bucs have a really good middle of their defense, so it's going to be hard for us to be able to run the ball. And if Jalen is struggling again, Jalen's not getting the passing game going, Brian Johnson's not getting the passing game going, the Eagles are going to try to lean on our running game, and that's where Vita Vea comes in, where he can be a game wrecker. He can stuff a running game along with their two linebackers, Devin White and Levante David. That middle of their defense is ferocious, and we're going to need Kelsey to lead the way if we're going to need to rush the ball tonight.
All right. Speaking of rushing, people are rushing to get their tickets for the Phillies playoffs coming up, the Eagles games. Sam was trying to get some for tonight's game against the Bucs in Tampa. That didn't work out.
Get to that later.
So, the best way to get your tickets, and you don't have to rush for them, it's very easy to get them, is on SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a ticketing app that takes the confusion out of buying your tickets. All you got to do is go to SeatGeek.com or download the SeatGeek app, and at checkout, no matter what you're buying, either for its concert, baseball, hockey, soccer, football, basketball, whatever, comedy, whatever, use code Philly Sports Report. You can save $20 off your first SeatGeek order. You're saving money. Tickets are very expensive. Phillies playoff tickets are going to be super expensive. These Eagles tickets are very expensive. So to save some money, use SeatGeek, use code Philly Sports Report, save $20 off your first purchase. Thank you, SeatGeek, for sponsoring. SeatGeek sponsors also our next subject, the SeatGeek Standout Stars. Sam will go with the four-way alliteration. Sam's SeatGeek Standout Stars. Woo, what do you got?
Well, the first thing I'll say about SeatGeek is that the Phillies playoff first-round tickets are already sold out, and you want to be in that building for those playoff games. Obviously, last year was incredible, and this year is going to be even better with the high expectations and Trey Turner coming in, trying to make an impact, and you want to be in that building that first game of the playoffs. It's going to be electric, but. So I already talked about a lot my SeatGeek standout star, my first one. I just really think that he is going to really make his impact on this game. And Baker Mayfield is, as well as he's played so far, he has shown in the past that if he's under pressure, if he gets hit, if he's rattled, he will start making mistakes and turning the football over. And I think Hassan Reddick is just really going to have his way with their new right tackle. It's a big game. National TV, Hassan Reddick shows up in the big moments, and I really think that he's going to show out tonight. But my second one is going to be A.J. Brown. Obviously, last week we saw him and Jalen kind of having that disagreement, we'll say, on the sidelines. And then right afterwards, A.J. got 2 deep ball touchdowns, and A.J. has been known to, when other players are getting the ball and he's not, to start complaining. And the Eagles have shown that when one player complains or one player doesn't get a lot of touches one game, they go right to him the next game. And the Buccaneers have an injury at cornerback. That's Carlton Davis isn't playing today, and I think that AJ is going to try to take advantage of that. Obviously, Devontae had a huge week last week, had a good game week 1. He's kind of been the number 1 receiver so far, and I think that changes tonight. I think A.J. Brown's going to have a massive game tonight. He is my second standout star.
There you go, seeking standout stars. Speaking of Phillies playoffs, we got our Game 3 tickets for the wild card. So hopefully, our hope is that the Eagles sweep whoever they're playing in the wild card, and then those tickets are NLDS tickets, and we can see the Braves.
I'm going to Game 1.
Nice. It will be electric. It's going to be exciting. What's not exciting is the inactives, because the inactives stink for the Eagles today. So inactives today for the Birds we'll start with. We got Albert O. Moro Ojomo. That's a great name. Tyler Steen, Boston Scott, and Quez Watkins are both inactive. Boston Scott is still in concussion protocol, and Quez Watkins inactive. For the Buccaneers, Carlton Davis the third, Kalaja Kansi, I think if I'm pronouncing these, I apologize. Dedrin Senat, Marquise Watts, and Brandon Walton. Vita Vea was questionable all day, but he is active tonight. In bad news for the Eagles. How will these inactives affect the Birds today?
Well, I think Carlton Davis is obviously the biggest inactive on the Buccaneers side, one of their starting cornerbacks. Kind of a big name, and I think the Eagles will be able to take advantage of that. But Boston Scott would definitely be the biggest injury on the Eagles. Terrible for him because he had a concussion 11 days ago. Still hasn't really practiced. So really hoping he gets better because obviously James Bradbury had the same injury in the same day. He's going to be back today. So just really hoping Boston gets better. But the Eagles elevated Devin Allen today. So Allen is a former and current Olympic track runner. He is obviously extremely fast, and he took one to the house on a kickoff return in the preseason. So I think it's pretty obvious Boston Scott returns kickoffs. Now Devin Allen will return kickoffs. And I do think that this is a kind of an audition for him. Boston Scott has not done a great job on kickoffs. Obviously, there is new rules where if you fair catch it, you can get it from the 25. So that does affect it. But if he kind of lights a spark, gets a good return, I think that this could be something that we see coming up in the future. Maybe not taking Boston Scott's job where we make Boston Scott inactive or anything, but this is his chance to kind of make his mark. And he's an Olympic track runner, so he at least has the speed. We'll see how he does out there, but I'm excited to see him out there.
Yeah, he's been with the Eagles. He's been with the practice squad for the last 2 seasons. Everybody's been hoping to see him, and finally, we get to see the Olympian. Let's see what it can do tonight. I'm excited. I hope maybe first play Eagles. The Bucks win the coin toss. They defer, and then you got Devin Allen returning the kick to the house. We'll see. I'm excited.
You have to bring the permanent roster spot after that.
Yeah. Here's your bets. The Eagles are -5 on the money line. Will they cover?
So I actually like the Bucks in today's game. I think the Bucks defense is really good, and the Bucks have been playing extremely tough. So I would take the Bucks with the points. And then I have A.J. Brown, anytime touchdown. He has not scored a touchdown so far this season. And I think, like I said before, that he's going to be one of the SeatGeek standout stars for today. And then I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just these sports books that I have to try to find down here because sports betting is not legal. But the Eagles' rushing yards for the players are extremely low. So I'm going to go, if this is available for people in the Philly area, I would take it. DeAndre Swift over 36.5 rushing yards just seems like an absolute lock. He had 170 plus rushing yards last week, and at the very least, if him and Kenny are going to be sharing, that's not even a lot of rushing yards at all. So if that is available, I would hammer that.
Over under is 44. Are you going over or under?
I have the over.
Okay. So the keys to the game now. We're getting to the end of our show. If you're still with us, make sure to go like and subscribe. Follow all of our social medias. Link in the description. Rate us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever. Also, link in the description. PhillySportSports.com is in the description. Now, the keys to the game. Mr. Sam Hine, what are your keys?
So I think one of the biggest keys to the game is to get the offense back on track in the passing game. The Eagles obviously need to do whatever it takes to win the game. If they need DeAndre Swift to go for 170 again, by all means do it. But the Eagles have not looked great in the passing game so far this season, and they do not look like a team that is poised for another Super Bowl run based off their passing game. Obviously, it was only 2 weeks. They didn't play in the preseason, but I think that all those kind of excuses of, oh, they didn't play in this preseason, it was 2 weeks, they had a short week, all that should be over now. They had 11 days off to figure out the looks of these new defenses that the defenses are giving them, and the Eagles need to be able to get Jalen Hurts and this offense back on track. You paid Jalen over $250 million this offseason, and while we all believe in him, we all think that he's the guy, he needs to show it because, we can't have a season go down the drain because he's not performing up to his standards. And then my second key to the game is going to be to hit Baker early. Like I said earlier with Hassan, Baker can be flustered. He can start making stupid interceptions. He reminds me a lot of Carson back in the day, where Carson was really good at managing the game. He was okay making his easy throws, but then as soon as he started trying to do too much, or he started feeling the pressure and taking sacks, that's when he starts throwing the ball up. That's when he starts making mistakes. So I think we need to get to Baker early and often.
2016 first and second overall picks, Baker Mayfield and Carson Wentz. Similarities there.
Jared Goff. Baker was the next year.
I thought Baker was 2016.
Nah.
He wasn't?
It was Goff and Wentz, yeah.
Oh, it was Goff. Got my years mixed up. Still.
Both very high picks that have both not turned out.
Yeah. So there was.
Baker's a former teammate of Jalen's, I think. I don't know if maybe they might have overcrossed at Oklahoma. I'm not 100% sure.
I don't know. It's possible. So today, Jimmy Kempski put this out. According to Vivid Seats, it is expected that 59% of the crowd at Raymond James Stadium for Monday Night Football between the Eagles and Buccaneers will be Eagles fans. Here's a visual representation, which I thought this was pretty cool.
Yeah, so obviously you said I was trying to get tickets to this game. My friends were trying to get tickets to this game, but it was absolutely impossible because of how many Eagles fans are coming to this game. So I listened to Jimmy's podcast on Bleeding Green Nation, and he talked about how Vivid Seats. Obviously, we are a Seat Geek podcast, but Vivid Seats talked about how 59% of the tickets sold to this game were with billing addresses from the Philadelphia area. So just because 59% of them are from Philly doesn't mean it's just going to be 59% Eagles fans. As we all know, Clearwater, Florida, which is right next to Tampa, is Philly South. Philly spring training's there. 1 million people from Philly moved down there to retire. We've seen them take over Tampa Bay Rays games before. So I think this number could get up close to the 70%. At my job all week, I've seen people coming in with Eagles shirts, Eagles golf shirts, Eagles hats, and they've all said they're going down and then they're heading over to Tampa for the game. So I think it's going to be a lot more than 59%, but it is crazy that at least 59% of the fans are coming in from the Philly area. It is wild, and it makes sense why the tickets were so expensive.
Yeah, I mean, 15. They're literally going to take. It's going to be an Eagles home game, which is huge. I saw these videos from the Philly sports trips, fans of Philly. There are so many Eagles fans down there. When the reporters were walking in, they said they couldn't even see any red. So it's gonna be pretty amazing to see how much green is going to be at that stadium tonight. It's gonna kind of look like, remember in 2017 where we played the Chargers? They were still in that soccer stadium and it was all green. I think this is what that's gonna look like tonight.
Yeah,
it's gonna be pretty.
Yeah, like I said, even over here in Orlando and Disney and all that, there was still a bunch of Eagles fans that came down here, and then they're making the trip over. So it's gonna be a lot of Eagles fans, and it's gonna be exciting because the Eagles always talk about how well we travel, our fans, and it'll be a good sight for them to see all the green and Kelly green in the stands when they enter that stadium.
And it's good to be on national television tonight as well, and to have a good representation with that.
Very cool stadium. Very cool stadium.
Is it? I see. Yeah, the only thing I know is that pirate ship out there looks.
Yeah. I did a tour when I was in 8th grade, and we went to spring training. My dad and my brother, and the whole time they talked about how we were from Philly and how they want to throw us in jail every time we go to that stadium. But the stadium's nice though.
The Sam Heim fit check looks like you're going a little old school with the jersey today.
Yeah, so we're throwing it back today. We got probably my most prized possession of a jersey. Wow. We got the 1999 Doug Peterson jersey. Not a lot of people know Doug Peterson was a backup quarterback for the Eagles in 1999, and obviously he's a Super Bowl winning coach for the Eagles. I don't wear it often because it's probably my most prized possession jersey, but I thought I'd bring it out today.
Where, why, and how much for the jersey?
So I actually found it on eBay. It didn't have a nameplate on it, so I sent it out and got a nameplate on it. Jersey was $15, nameplate was $20. I got extremely lucky. It was just a 14 with no nameplate on it, and there's a bunch of websites that probably I was the first person not to send a number 11 to get it from Wentz to Brown to that place to get a new nameplate, but they did it. It looks exactly like the one Peterson wore back then, and I'll cherish it forever.
How long ago did you get the jersey?
Last year, I found it. I was always kind of on the lookout for one, and then a lot of times when you see this, these old jerseys of when they first went to the midnight green, it's always 14 and it's Ty Detmer. Every time I'd go through the pictures and Detmer was on the back, it would just crush my soul. And then I found one that was blank, and it was my size. It was meant to be.
There you go. All right, predictions for today's game. If you're with us, go comment your predictions in the chat. Sam, what is your prediction for today's Week 3 Monday Night Football matchup between the 2-0 Philadelphia Eagles and the 2-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
So I've heard all day on WIP that the Eagles are going to kind of blow them out today, which I do not agree with. I think that the Buccaneers have enough talent to keep this game close. I do think that the Eagles are going to win this game. I do think they're going to be up late in the game. I think they're going to be up by 10, 27 to 17 late in the game. Bucs are going to kind of have a late game drive. Eagles are going to let up a late touchdown for the backdoor cover of Buccaneers +5, which I think the final score is going to be Eagles 27, Bucs 24, head home 3-0 and atop the division.
Yes, this win would be huge with the Cowboys losing to Jonathan Gannon and the Arizona Cardinals yesterday. The Giants got blown out by the 49ers, and the Commanders finally brought back to earth as they got dominated by the Bills. For me, I also don't think this is going to be a blowout. I think the Eagles will win, but I'm kind of in the same ballpark as you, except I think the Eagles aren't going to get to 27. I think they stick at 24. But I don't think Baker Mayfield has a great game. I think that offense is going to. They're not going to be able to do anything tonight. So I have the Eagles 24. They'll win by 10, so it is a decent margin. So I have the Eagles 24, Buccaneers 14 as my with my final score. So yeah, anything else you need to add before we wrap this up?
No, I'm good.
All right, this has been the Philly Sports Eagles pre-game show brought to you by SeatGeek. Make sure to use code Philly Sports to save $20 off your first purchase. Like and subscribe on YouTube and follow all of our social medias in the comments section or the description below this video. We'll be back at halftime. That's right, a new halftime show here on the Philly Sports Report YouTube channel. The link will be posted out on all of our social medias. It's already up. You can go click on it and set a reminder now. That will be live. We will be live at halftime, so that will be very exciting. But after the game, make sure to go check out phillysportsports.com for the game recap by one of our Eagles analysts. We will see you at halftime. Go Birds!
Go Birds!